They sealed Meriel Doss's laundry as unclean, while her hands were still raw from washing fever out of soldiers' sleeves. Iron Rain Laundry Court stood behind the eastern barracks, where steam rose from stone vats and rainwater ran through silver troughs carved with old moon marks. For 32 years, Meriel had washed battlefield cloth there. Blood-stiff tunics, mud-packed bandages, and uniforms torn by wolf teeth and iron arrows. No one sang about laundry women. Songs preferred swords. But every soldier who returned from war returned inside cloth. Someone had to touch after the battlefield let go. That morning, the court was full of soldiers, healers, royal officers, and frightened washgirls with soap burns on their wrists. At the center, beneath the open roof, the Moonwash Basin sat quiet and silver, its water clear enough to hold the winter sky. The Moonwash Basin did not judge guilt. Under witness testing, it separated treatment layers in the order they entered the cloth and uncovered trademarks hidden beneath them. Because the process weakened military proofing, it was reserved for disputed contamination and formal inquiry. Beside it, Quartermaster Vesk Tollen held up a stained officer's coat with gloved hands. "Here is the source," he said, sorrowful and certain. "Fever rash, skin burns, rot beneath the seams, all traced back to garments processed in Meriel Doss's hall." A murmur moved through the gathered pack. Meriel stood before the basin in a grey work dress, apron dark with water, hair pinned badly because she had been called from the boiling room before dawn. She looked tired in the way only labor made a woman tired when no one had ever called it sacrifice. Alpha King Severan Holtwood stood under the black barrack arch, cloak damp from rain, iron-grey eyes fixed on her. Once, after battle, Severan had stood coatless beside her vats and called the laundry quieter than his throne. Now he looked at her, as if quiet had become disease. Meriel lifted her chin. "Those coats came to me already treated." Vesk's expression tightened. "Every military garment comes through standard supply. Standard supply does not sting through gloves." A senior washworker named Halen raised her burned hands. The newest numbered casks stung through leather. The bleeding stopped when Mistress Doss isolated them. Severan's eyes moved to Halen. "Visk Muthfester, Majesty, devotion can become dangerous when exhaustion clouds judgment. Widow Doss has served beyond reasonable years." Meriel turned to him. "Do not soften the knife by calling me devoted." Vesk bowed his head. "I only mean good service can still become unsafe service." Severan looked at Meriel. "Did you change the wash mixture?" "No." "Did you use unauthorized lye?" "No." "Did you dilute moon soap to stretch supply?" Her mouth tightened. There it was, the insult men saved for women who made small things last. "I stretched my hands," she said. "Not the soap." Vesk opened a ledger. 3 returning wolf companies developed fever burns after their uniforms were washed at Iron Rain. 5 healers confirmed the rash worsened after contact with treated cloth. Meriel looked at the ledger. "Ask where the treatment came from." Vesk sighed. "From royal supply, naturally. From your casks. Under crown contract." "Then open them." Severan's gaze sharpened. Vesk did not hesitate. "The stores must be quarantined and opened under quartermaster, healer, and military custody. Breaking sealed casks in an exposed court would compromise both evidence and supply." It was a reasonable answer. That made it more dangerous. Meriel looked at Severan. "Then quarantine them now. Do not close my hall while your casks remain in circulation." Vesk turned smoothly to the crowd. "She admits she altered procedure. I stopped using what burned us. You withheld military treatment protocol. I kept that supply off injured skin." The courtyard tightened. Vesk let the implication hang, then spoke gently. "If she believed royal treatment supplies were dangerous, she may have washed uniforms improperly out of panic." Meriel's hands curled once in her apron, then opened. She would not give him trembling. "Quarantine the casks," she said to Severan. "Stop the military batches, keep the clean vats working, and the girls fed while you test the source." Severan looked toward the soldiers with bandaged throats and blistered wrists. Fear moved through the officers behind him. 3 companies. 5 healers. No immediate, clean military wash line. "Until this is examined," he said. "Iron Rain Laundry Court is closed." The wash girls made small sounds behind Meriel. He knew the seal froze wages, ration claims, roof fire, widow protections, and Meriel's authority until royal review. "Do not close my hall from the doorway," she said. His face changed. "A little. Not enough. Meriel, no. Do not say my name like you remember me while you forget my work." Severan looked toward the Moonwash Basin. "The hall is sealed pending public health inquiry." Vesk inclined his head. "A necessary mercy." Meriel laughed once. Quietly. "Men always call it mercy when women lose bread for their mistakes." Severan's hand paused over the royal seal chain. For one breath he remembered her wringing blood rain from his cloak in silence. Then Vesk said, "Majesty, delay risks the fever spreading." Severan pressed the royal seal into the closure wax. Iron Rain Laundry Court became illegal under his hand. Only after the seal dried did Severan turn to the officer's coat. "Take a dry sample first," he ordered. "Record the tag and seams. Then let the basin separate what the eye cannot." On Severan's order, a healer sealed a dry cuff fiber. Halen identified Iron Rain's intake stitch and final rinse thread, and a military recorder copied the batch tag before the remaining coat entered the basin. A recorder lowered a clean Iron Rain control strip first. The water remained silver. Then the officer lowered the stained coat. When the cuff crossed the silver test ring, the basin shivered once. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then blackness loosened from beneath the cuff seams, below the layer where Iron Rain's final rinse should have settled, thick and oily through the silver water. That placed the substance earlier in the treatment chain, though not yet at a named hand. A mark surfaced beneath the collar. Vesk said evenly, "The stamp identifies my office, not the contents of the cask." The black water cleared around the metal thread impression. Not Meriel's laundry stitch. Not her soap sign. A quartermaster procurement stamp. Vesk Tollen's mark. The procurement stamp connected the contaminated coat to Vesk Tollen's office. It did not establish who mixed the black treatment, where it entered the cloth, or whether Vesk knew the batch had been altered. Vesk understood that before anyone else could. "The stamp proves chain of supply," he said, voice steady over the darkened Moonwash water. "Not misconduct." Meriel stood beside the basin with her raw hands folded in her apron. "Then follow the chain." A small silence moved through Iron Rain Laundry Court. Severan Holtwood looked from the coat to the royal closure seal drying red on the gate behind Meriel. He had sealed the hole before testing the source. Now the first test had pointed away from the laundry alone. "Preserve the coat," he ordered. A healer sealed the dry cuff fiber. A military recorder copied the Moonwash result. Halen marked Iron Rain's intake stitch and final rinse thread in the record. Vesk nodded. "Properly done. The coat should now pass to quartermaster custody." "No," Meriel said. Severan's eyes moved to her. Vesk's mouth softened. "Widow Doss, evidence cannot remain with a closed hall, and it should not return alone to the office whose mark is under the collar." Vesk did not flinch. "That is an implication, not evidence. It is also common sense." Severan looked at the old healer. "Who holds it?" "Joint custody," the healer said. "Healer seal, military recorder seal, certified laundry witness, and quartermaster representative with copies." Vesk lifted a brow. "Laundry witness? Her hall is under closure. Closure removes Iron Rain's authority to process cloth," Severan said. "It does not remove a worker's right to identify trademarks. Her hall is closed. Her workers are not erased." Meriel looked at him once, not with gratitude, with warning. Vesk turned smoothly. "Majesty, if every worker fear becomes equal to Crown supply record, The army will drown in suspicion. Meriel looked at the soldiers with bandaged wrists. Better suspicion than poison. Halen swallowed. Mistress Doss kept a quarantine log. Vesk looked at her gently. A private note written after fear began. Meriel pulled a damp grey book from her apron pocket. Written after the first-hand burn. Before the first officer accused my hall. Severan looked at the book. Open it. No, Meriel said. His face hardened. She lifted her raw hands. Not to you first. To the healer. You closed my hall from the doorway. You do not get to make my records look like something I hid for your permission. The old healer took the log. Severan let her. The healer read, then compared the first page to Halen's treatment slip. The military recorder matched casks 7 through 12 to the delivery ledger. The pages were sequential. The ink predated the first officer complaint. Casks 7 through 12 isolated, the healer said. Worker hand burns, reduced after removal. Military bandage rash, reduced after secondary rinse. Vesk's eyes sharpened. Secondary rinse. Unauthorized. Meriel turned to him. The rinse kept fevered skin from blistering open. A treatment that removes an irritant may also remove the military protection the contractor was paid to provide. Then test what remained after the rinse, she said. Do not require wounded men to wear a protection that opens their skin. The court went quiet. Severan looked at Halen's bandaged hands, then at the girls behind her. Until the source is known, he said. All Iron Rain workers receive emergency wages, ration claims, roof fire, medical care, and widow protections under royal order. The wash girls began to cry without hiding it. Vesk's voice stayed careful. Generous, Majesty, but public health closure remains necessary. Yes, Severan said. Military washing remains restricted. Civilian clean work remains suspended until testing. But the workers will not pay for uncertainty with hunger. The relief did not repair the closure. It proved the hunger it caused had never been necessary. The casks arrived under witnessed custody. New oak. Blue crown bands. Vesk's procurement mark burned beside the batch numbers. The sour metallic smell reached Meriel before the lids shifted. Number 9 caused the worst burns, Halen whispered. Number 12 came in the same shipment. Mistress Doss quarantined it before we broke the receiving thread. Vesk addressed the court. The contractor tag certifies the formula ordered and the batch delivered to royal stores. It does not establish what happened after acceptance. Meriel looked at Severan. Then, record every mark before anyone opens it. Severan nodded. Do it. The recorder identified the 3 systems allowed. The contractor certification tag beside the batch number, the royal store, entry wax over the bung, and Iron Rain's receiving thread tied when the cask reached the laundry. Halen's receiving thread crossed over the wax and remained uncut. The usage ledger showed no withdrawal against cask 12. The recorder copied both seal impressions. The healer sealed a wax fragment and drew one measured sample before the bung was closed again. Vesk watched without losing composure. If the wax was replaced, the question is where? Store, loading yard, transport, or delivery? Not assumption. No, Meriel said. Question. A residue reference from the coat was set in one silver cup. A sample from cask 12 was set in another. Both cups were lowered into separate marked rings of the Moonwash Basin. The cuff residue separated first. Black, oily, curling away from moon soap. Then the cask sample answered in the same pattern, rejecting moon soap at the same interval. The old healer's voice was careful. Strong preliminary match. Full composition still requires alchemical analysis. Vesk said nothing. The recorder looked at the seals again, then read the narrow chronology aloud. The contractor certification tag is intact. The royal store wax beneath it had been broken and replaced. Halen's uncut receiving thread crosses over the replacement. The alteration happened before Iron Rain accepted the cask. The uncut receiving thread did not accuse Vesk Tollen. It moved the question out of Meriel's boiling room. That was enough to change the shape of Iron Rain Laundry Court. Soldiers no longer looked only at the sealed vats. Healers bent closer to the records. Washgirls stood straighter, as if truth had not freed them but had at least stopped pressing their faces into the mud. Vesk saw the shift and answered it with precision. "The alteration predates Iron Rain's receipt," he said. "It may have occurred in the quartermaster store during loading or during transport. We have narrowed the chain, Majesty. We have not named a hand." Severan Holtwood looked at the sealed sample cups beside the Moonwash Basin. "Then we examined the chain." Meriel's raw hands tightened once in her apron. "Start with the store exit ledger." Vesk turned to her. "You are not quartermaster." "No," Meriel said. "I am the last worker in the chain, Vesk. That made me the first person you accused." A low breath moved through the washgirls. Severan did not silence her. He entered the transport records into the public inquiry. "Bring the store exit ledger, loading roster, wagon seal record, and delivery receipt," he ordered. "Vesk may observe. He will not handle them alone." Vesk bowed. A fair restriction. Meriel did not trust fairness spoken by men who had arranged the room before she arrived. The records came under joint custody. Their leather covers were dry, clean, and far removed from the raw water stink of laundry work. A recorder opened the store exit page first. "Casks 7 through 12 released from Royal Quartermaster Store," he read. "Transport seal applied by store recorder. Seal intact at exit." Vesk nodded. "As expected." "Loading crew?" Severan asked. 3 soldiers. 1 quartermaster clerk. Names. The recorder read them. Halen frowned, then stepped forward. "Those names were not on Iron Rain's delivery slip," she said. Vesk answered evenly. "Ordinary delivery slips record the wagon seal and receiving time. Loading identities remain in the transport ledger." Meriel looked at him. "Then the women receiving the casks were expected to trust a chain whose names they were not permitted to see." The Moonwash Basin remained still. No sample touched its rings now. No silver shiver came to save anyone from records. Severan turned to the healer. "The chemical comparison?" "Preliminary," the healer said. "Cask 12, and the cuff residue separated in the same black, oily pattern and rejected moon soap at the same interval. Full formula still requires alchemical confirmation." "So not final identity," Vesk said. "No," the healer answered. "A strong comparison." Meriel nodded once. She did not need magic to remember the smell. The healer then laid Meriel's quarantine log beside the infirmary register. Halen's first burn entry matches the treatment date. The recorder matched the 37 bundle numbers to the bandage issue book. 2 wash workers marked the earliest pages. The entries predate the first officer complaint. He looked at Severan. "The comparison authenticates when the entries were made. It does not prove every medical conclusion was correct." Vesk's eyes moved to Meriel. "Including the secondary rinse." Meriel faced him. "Including that." The old healer read from the laundry law sheet. "A certified master washer may suspend or modify one treatment stage when cloth causes immediate visible injury. The authority lasts 1 watch and requires named bundles, healer notice, fever monitoring, and retrospective review." Severan looked at Meriel. "Did you meet it?" "She named the bundles," the healer said. "Limited the rinse to cloth touching open skin, recorded fever risk, monitored outcomes. The formal physician notice arrived after the first rewashing, not before it." Vesk's voice sharpened only slightly. "That is a real procedural failure." "Yes," Meriel said. "A recorded one." The healer turned the page. 37 bandage bundles entered under Meriel Doss's emergency deviation mark. Rash reduced after rinse. 29 completed the first watch without wound fever. 8 remain under observation. The entries support reduced irritation. They do not yet establish that fever protection remained intact. That is improvement, Vesk said, not validation. Meriel's voice stayed low. It was enough to stop cloth from opening their skin while the healers watched the second risk. Severan looked at the names in the log. You save names from becoming fever reports. Her mouth hardened. Do not make it beautiful. I was washing cloth at midnight, because no officer would decide whether preventing pain counted as medicine. Severan absorbed the answer without looking away. The recorder turned to the wagon record. First gate guard recorded the same transport seal number as intact, he said. Eastern Barracks receipt records that number, with the wax broken. Stops between? Severan asked. One scheduled stop. Vesk looked toward the route slate. The stop may be ordinary. Read it, Severan said. The recorder wiped rain from the slate's edge. Route order scheduled a draft team change at the Alpha King's private war stable. Military supply wagons are forbidden to enter the Eastern Barracks with exhausted animals. Meriel looked at Severan. Note accusation. Not comfort. A private war stable did not mean his hand had opened the cask. It meant the chain now passed through his household authority. The stable belonged to Severan's command, though its daily gates were controlled by the royal stablemaster. The recorder continued. Standard team change. 12 minutes. Recorded. Stop. 40. No axle repair. No delay authorization. No stable exit seal inspection. Entered. Vesk spoke before the room could turn wild. The stable stop narrows the unverified interval. It does not eliminate loading access, road access, or the possibility of seal damage without cask opening. Then we review the stable, Severan said. Opening the private war stable to outside custody would expose his household, his guards, and his own logistical authority to public review. This time, the cost belonged to him. Seal the stable records, he ordered. No member of my household handles them alone. The healer, military recorder, and Iron Rain witness will enter with the stablemaster. Meriel did not thank him. The order placed his private household under the same scrutiny he had first imposed on her hall. The stable was the only recorded stop inside the unverified interval. It was not yet a proven tampering site. The wagon had spent 40 minutes inside the Alpha King's private war stable. By the time the stable records arrived, Iron Rain Laundry Court had stopped feeling like a laundry. It had become a place where every clean surface waited to be accused. The royal closure seal still barred Meriel's vats. The workers still stood under restricted status, wages protected but hands idle. Soldiers watched from beneath the barrack arches, some bandaged, some angry, some ashamed, to realize how little they had ever known about the cloth touching their wounds. Severan Holtwood placed the war stable ledger on a dry evidence board. No household guard handles this alone, he said. Recorder, healer, Iron Rain witness, stablemaster. The order drew a visible tightening through the royal officers. Meriel noticed. Sorte Vesk tollen. The stable is yours, Majesty, Vesk said evenly. Opening it under outside custody protects the inquiry, but it also invites political interpretation. Severan's face did not move. Then let interpretation watch procedure. Meriel stood beside Halen, not behind him, not beside Severan. Her authority remained suspended. She had been permitted as technical laundry witness, not restored as master of Iron Rain. That difference mattered. The stablemaster arrived with rain on his shoulders and stable straw clinging to one boot. He bowed low, but his eyes flicked first to Severan, then to the ledger, then to Meriel. Your Majesty, he said. The wagon stop was ordinary. Draft team change. Eastern Barracks refuses exhausted teams at the fever gate. The recorder opened the route schedule. Standard team change is 12 minutes. The stablemaster nodded. Usually. This one took 40. A harness trace snapped. Recorded repair? The stablemaster hesitated. It should be in the tax slip. Bring it, Severan said. Vesk lifted one hand. A broken trace can explain delay without implying tampering. Meriel looked at him. Then the repair record should be eager to help you. A few soldiers looked down. The Moonwash Basin remained still behind her. No sample sat in its rings. No water moved to make anyone brave. That was better. People had to do the work themselves. The tax slip came under stable seal. The recorder read it twice, then frowned. No harness repair entered. The stable master's jaw tightened. Then the groom failed to mark it. Name the groom, Severan said. Tor Villen. The recorder checked the gatebook. Tor Will not listed on duty during the stop. Silence moved. Not guilt. Yet. But. Shape. Vesk spoke carefully. Incomplete stable paperwork is common in wartime supply traffic. Meriel turned to Halen. Was incomplete laundry paperwork allowed to close our hall? Halen's burned fingers curled. Severan heard it. He did not defend himself. The healer unwrapped the wax fragment taken from cask 12 and set it beside the transport wax rubbing from the wagon record. Composition? Severan asked. Royal transport wax, the healer said, but warmed and reset. The edge pattern does not match a clean first seal. Vesk nodded once. So someone with access to royal wax, not necessarily a quartermaster, could have reset it. Who held the seal die? Meriel asked. The recorder checked the custody list. Royal store recorder at exit. First gate guard verified the number. Transport captain carried the die case only for emergency resealing. Was emergency resealing recorded? Severan asked. No. The stable master swallowed. If the wax broke from rain or wheel jolt, then the reseal should be recorded, Meriel said. Vesk's eyes moved to her. You understand record law well for someone outside military supply. I have lived under men's records all my life, she said. I learned which ones make women disappear. Severan's hand tightened on the edge of the board. He said nothing. Good. The healer examined cask 12's bung with a magnifying moon lens. Tool marks are present. Old? Vesk asked. Not from Iron Rain use. The receiving thread remained uncut. The marks sit beneath the replacement wax. Meriel drew one breath. Vesk remained composed. Then the cask was opened before Iron Rain. That remains store, loading, transport, or stable custody. Which one failed inspection? Severan asked. All remain under review. Vesk answered. It was the right answer. Meriel hated him for how cleanly he gave it. The alchemist arrived near dusk, robes damp, silver case tucked under one arm. He bowed and examined the preliminary residue cups without touching the original samples. Not final formula, he said. But the black treatment contains a harsh mineral preservative. It would resist mildew. It would also inflame broken skin. Vesk's gaze sharpened. Would it preserve battlefield cloth? Yes. Would it replace a safer, fever-resistant rinse? The alchemist paused. Functionally, perhaps. Medically, badly. The washgirls exchanged looks. Meriel did not. She had already smelled the difference. The healer turned to her secondary rinse notes. Testing also suggests the rinse reduced residue against wounded skin. Fever protection after rinse remains under observation. Vesk looked at Severan. So her deviation may have reduced harm and risked another. Meriel answered before Severan could. Yes. That is why I wrote it down. The stable gatebook arrived last. The recorder read the wagon entry, the draft team exchange, the 2 guards on the gate, the stable master's mark, and the time. 40 minutes. Then his finger stopped. There was one additional visitor during the stop. Severan looked up. Name? The recorder checked the pass copy. Admitted under sealed royal service pass. Mine? Severan asked. No, Majesty. Vesk's expression stayed calm, but his eyes narrowed. The recorder's voice lowered. The pass belonged to Captain Edron Vale. Halen whispered. The officer's coat. Meriel looked at the stained uniform, still sealed under joint custody. The recorder finished the line. Captain Edrin Vale is the officer whose contaminated coat, Quartermaster Vesk, first presented as evidence against Iron Rain. Captain Edrin Vale's name did not clear Meriel Doss. It changed what his coat could mean. That was enough to make Severan Holtwood go very still. The stained uniform lay sealed beneath healer glass, the same coat Vesk Tollan had raised before Iron Rain, as proof that Miriel's haul had poisoned soldiers. Now the gatebook placed its owner inside the Alpha King's private war stable during the 40-minute gap in the supply wagon's route. Not guilty. Present. There was a difference. Meriel knew the difference because women like her were rarely granted it. Vesk stepped forward before the room could sharpen into accusation. Captain Vale's presence may be unrelated. Officers pass through royal stables constantly. A coat can be contaminated by storage, transport, field exposure, or later handling. Severan looked at him. Then we establish which. Of course, Majesty. Meriel studied Vesk's face. Calm. Correct. Careful. That made him dangerous enough to believe. Severan turned to the recorder. Bring Captain Vale. The recorder hesitated. He is under fever watch. Then bring the healer who examined him and his service log. Vesk inclined his head. Wise. Questioning a sick officer publicly may appear punitive. Meriel looked at him. Closing a laundry full of injured women did not trouble your sense of appearance. A few wash girls lifted their eyes. Severan heard it. He did not look away this time. No witness is to be shamed for being ill, he said. No worker is to be shamed for touching what the army handed her. The words landed in Iron Rain Laundry Court with the weight of something late and necessary. Meriel did not thank him. The service log arrived first. Captain Edrin Vale had entered the private war stable during the wagon stop under Royal Service Pass. Purpose: officer uniform exchange before fever inspection. His coat had been marked rash sauce 2 days later. Severan read it twice. Uniform exchange, he said. The stablemaster swallowed. Officers sometimes change before entering the eastern barracks. Fever gate keeps infected cloth out of the inner yard. Meriel looked at the sealed coat. Was that coat exchanged before or after the casks were handled? The stablemaster hesitated. Vesk answered carefully. The stable log may not record proximity to the supply wagon. Then ask the men who moved the wagon, Meriel said. Severan's gaze shifted to the 3 soldiers and the quartermaster clerk from the loading roster. They had been held under witness order, not arrest. Rain-dark and stiff-backed, they stood beside the barrack arch, as if hoping rank could make them invisible. Who handled cask 12 at the stable? Severan asked. The first soldier shook his head. No one, Majesty. We changed teams. The second said, we did not unload. The third looked at the quartermaster clerk. Meriel saw it. So did Severan. Clerk, Severan said. The young man went pale. We checked the wagon straps. All of you? No, Majesty. Captain Vale requested space near the tack wall. Said his coat had battlefield fever dust and needed separate handling before barracks inspection. Vesk's face remained composed. That is reasonable procedure. Meriel's voice stayed quiet. Where was the coat placed? The clerk swallowed. On the side rail. Beside what? He closed his eyes. Beside the supply casks. The Moonwash Basin did not move. No test had been placed before it. Truth had to arrive by testimony this time. Awkward and human and afraid. Severan looked at the healer. Could contact with an altered cask contaminate cuff seams? The healer answered slowly. If the bung had leaked, or if residue was on the rail, it could explain surface transfer. It would not explain treatment beneath Iron Rain's final rinse layer, unless the coat carried exposure before the completed wash, or was re-exposed after. Vesk nodded. So the coat alone still cannot condemn my office or clear Iron Rain. No, Meriel said. But it can no longer condemn my haul alone. Severan closed his hand over the service log. Something in him cracked then. Not loudly, Not beautifully. He set the log on the public evidence board beside the closure seal copy. Record this, he ordered. The first coat used to justify full closure had contact with the supply wagon during the unverified stable interval before it was presented as Iron Rain proof. Vesk's eyes narrowed. Majesty, that language may weaken confidence in the public health order. It should, Severan said. The order was broader than the evidence. The court went silent. Meriel felt the washgirls behind her go still. Severan looked toward the sealed vats of Iron Rain Laundry Court. Military washing remains restricted. Suspect casks remain quarantined. But the allegation that Iron Rain alone caused the fever burns is removed from the public notice. Vesk spoke softly. That is a serious correction. Yes, it may invite claims against the Crown. Severan looked at Meriel's raw hands. Then the Crown will stand where it placed the blame. Meriel's breath caught before she could stop it. He had not restored her authority. He had not reopened her hall. He had not asked forgiveness. But he had put his own order on the evidence board to be challenged. That cost more than silence. The healer returned to the coat. There is another issue, he said. Severan turned. What? The inside collar carries Iron Rain's final rinse thread. The cuff carries black residue, but the shoulder seam. He lifted the glass with gloved care. The shoulder seam bears a second mark. Meriel stepped closer despite herself. Not Iron Rain, not procurement. A tiny crescent brand pressed under the lining, nearly hidden by the officer's rank braid. The healer read the mark. Field preservation treatment. Emergency issue. Vesk's mouth became a thin line. Severan looked at him. Meriel spoke first. Who authorized field preservation on an officer's coat before it reached my wash line? The recorder turned the service log to its last attached slip. His voice lowered. Authorization signed by quartermaster office. Substitute preservative. Approved for emergency use. The authorization slip did not say Vesk Tollan had poisoned anyone. It said his office had permitted a cheaper thing to touch soldiers' skin under a safer name. That was worse in a quieter way. Severan Holtwood took the slip from the recorder and read the line twice. Substitute preservative approved for emergency use. Quartermaster office. Field preservation treatment. The words looked clean enough to survive a courtroom. Meriel knew that kind of clean. It was the cleanliness of ledgers written far from the stink of boiling cloth, far from women with cracked hands, far from soldiers whose bandages came away with skin clinging to the weave. Vesk spoke before the silence could become accusation. Emergency substitution is legal during campaign shortage, he said. Field preservation keeps uniforms from mildew, rot, and fever mold when transport is delayed. Without it, whole companies might have worn spoiled cloth. Severan looked up. Was the substitution disclosed to Iron Rain? Vesk did not hesitate. It should have been included in the treatment packet. Meriel turned to Halen. Did we receive one? Halen shook her head. Only the batch numbers, rinse ratio, and storage warning. Vesk's mouth tightened. Then the packet may be missing from the delivery papers. Convenient papers are always the first to go missing, Meriel said. Or laundry halls misfile during crisis, Vesk answered. She looked at him. My hall kept 32 years of dead men's buttons sorted by company. Do not tell me I misplaced the warning that would have saved my girl's hands. The wash girls stood straighter behind her. Severan set the slip on the evidence board. Bring the treatment packet, purchase order, contractor certification, and payment ledger. Vesk bowed his head. Under joint custody. Yes, Severan said. And you will observe, not curate. That earned the first true stir from the officers. Quartermasters curated everything. The records arrived, sealed in blue military wax. The contractor certification listed the approved formula first. Moon, silver fever rinse, wound, safe after dilution, suitable for injured skin contact when passed through final laundry wash. The alchemist read it, and nodded. That formula would not produce the black oil pattern we saw. Severan turned the page. And the substitute? The alchemist's voice flattened. Ash, lime, mineral preservative. Cheap, strong against mildew, harsh on broken skin. It can hide beneath seams if treated before final wash. Meriel closed her eyes for one breath. Not because she was surprised, because knowing something in the bones did not make hearing it before men any easier. Vesk lifted one hand. Harsh does not mean unlawful. Emergency substitutes exist because war supply is imperfect. Was it safe for bandages? Severan asked. No field preservative is meant for bandages. Meriel opened her eyes, and yet it entered uniforms touching wounds. Uniforms are not bandages, Vesk said. They become bandages when soldiers bleed inside them. The line landed hard. Even Severan's guards looked at the bandaged men beneath the arch. The payment ledger was opened next. The recorder read slowly. Crown paid full rate for Moon Silver Fever rinse. No deduction for substitute formula. Vesk's expression remained composed. Payment schedules often precede final material adjustment. Where is the adjustment? Severan asked. The recorder turned the pages. None came. Vesk's voice stayed level. Then it may be filed with campaign variance accounts. Bring them, Severan said. Majesty. Those accounts contain active military supply positions. Then the army will learn whether secrecy is protecting soldiers or poisoning them. Meriel looked at him then, not softly, carefully. He had begun to spend authority. That mattered. But it did not undo the seal on her gate. The variance accounts arrived near dusk. Rain had gathered in the edges of the courtyard. The Moonwash Basin held silver water, untouched, because no new cloth had entered its rings. This proof would not be given by magic. It would be given by the ugly patience of numbers. The first variance page listed 3 campaigns. The second listed shortages. The third listed substitutions. Casks 7 through 12 appeared under safe rinse allocation. No substitute deduction. No injured skin warning. No field preservation notice to Iron Rain. The recorder's voice slowed when he reached the final column. Supplier cost charged to Crown. Moon Silver Fever rinse. The alchemist checked the residue comparison again, but the tested sample behaves as ash lime preservative. Vesk answered at once. A mislabeled shipment remains possible. Meriel looked at him. Then someone mislabeled danger, billed safety, and sent the cost to women's hands. Severan's face hardened. Did your office approve the substitute? Vesk held his gaze. My office approved emergency preservation authority. That is not the same as approving improper billing or unsafe application. No, Meriel said. It is the same door with cleaner hinges. Severan looked at the officer's coat, then at cask 12, then at the closure seal that still barred her hall. I closed Iron Rain as the danger, he said, voice low enough that the courtyard had to quiet to hear him. The danger was already inside the supply before it reached her vats. Vesk said, Majesty, that conclusion exceeds the evidence. Severan nodded once. You are right. Meriel's chest tightened at the restraint. She hated that she could respect it. He turned to the recorder. Write it narrowly. Tested cask 12 contains a treatment behaving as ash lime preservative, while procurement and payment records identify Moon Silver Fever rinse. Iron Rain received no substitute warning. Investigation continues. The recorder wrote. Severan looked at Vesk. Your office is restricted from altering, removing, or correcting any campaign variance records until this inquiry ends. Vesk bowed. As you command. But Meriel saw his eyes move to one ledger the recorder had not yet opened. So did Severan. Read the remaining page, Severan said. The recorder turned it. One notation sat at the bottom, small enough to have been meant for a clerk's eye only. Ash lime substitute, authorized for officer uniform preservation. Soldier bandage contact, Not declared. Crown charged safe rinse rate. The payment record did not make the courtyard explode. It made it colder. Ash lime substitute, authorized for officer uniform preservation. Soldier bandage contact not declared. Crown charged safe rinse rate. The words sat on the evidence board beside Meriel's closed gate, as clean and dead as any knife after washing. Vesk Tollan read them without changing expression. The notation confirms a billing and warning discrepancy. It does not prove the substitute entered every affected uniform, nor that my office intended harm. Meriel looked at him. You keep asking us to admire the distance between harm and intention. His eyes moved to her. And you keep asking the court to confuse injury with guilt. No, she said. I am asking the court to notice that injury found women first. A few washgirls lowered their burned hands into their skirts. Severan saw them. He saw the closed vats, the royal seal, the workers standing inside, protection he had restored only after taking it. He had begun to understand the chain. That was not the same as having repaired it. An officer from the Royal Council hurried beneath the barrack arch, cloak spattered with rain. Majesty, the Council requests emergency wash service. Several council uniforms and officer cloaks came from the same campaign stores. They must be treated before tonight's session. Meriel laughed once, not loudly. Enough. The officer glanced at her as if remembering she was still allowed to speak. Severan turned. Iron Rain remains under medical restriction. The council understands, the officer said. But Mistress Doss knows the secondary rinse. If she supervises one clean line under guard. No, Meriel said. The word cut through steam and rain. The officer blinked. Mistress Doss, these are Royal Council garments. My hall was too unclean for soldiers' sleeves this morning, she said. It will not become clean because the council wants its cuffs saved before supper. Severan's face tightened, but he did not rebuke her. Vesk stepped in with smooth concern. Refusal to assist during public health risk may complicate her standing. Meriel turned to him. My standing is sealed to that gate. She walked to the closure wax and touched nothing. I did not seal it. I did not call my workers unsafe. I did not tell the pack that the women who washed war from cloth were the danger. Do not bring me royal collars now and ask my hands to become useful without becoming respected. The washgirls stood behind her in a line. Helen was pale. Her bandages had darkened with rain, but her chin stayed lifted. Severan looked at Meriel. What would you do if this were not the council? She met his eyes. That is the first honest question you have asked too late. He absorbed it. Answer it anyway. Meriel looked past him to the soldiers under the arch. Low-ranked men, stable hands, kitchen carriers, young messengers whose sleeves had touched officer cloth because status always found poorer skin first. I would separate exposed people from exposed garments, she said. Not by rank, by contact. I would treat skin first, cloth second, and records third. I would not spend one drop of clean water on a council hem while a servant's wrist is still burning. The council officer stiffened. That is not your authority to decide. Meriel lifted her damaged hands. Then stop asking for them. Silence fell. Severan looked at the officer. Any exposed servant, soldier, or worker is to report first. Council garments wait. The officer's mouth tightened. Majesty, the council will object. Let them object in clean shirts later. The line should have pleased the room. It did not. Meriel did not smile. Vesk did. Barely. Majesty, he said, you are allowing a suspended laundry master to set triage priorities. No, Severan said. I am accepting professional advice I should have sought before sealing her hall. Meriel looked away. That sentence struck too close to the wound to be comfort. She untied the iron key from her apron. Helen made a small sound. Mistress? Meriel placed the key on the dry stone beside the closure seal. Since Iron Rain is closed, I will not pretend to command it. Severan stepped forward. Meriel, no. Her voice did not rise. You do not get to make me your answer while my name still sits beneath your warning notice. His eyes moved to the public closure board. Iron Rain Laundry Court closed as contamination source. The words had not been changed. Not yet. The evidence had, but public shame always moved faster than public correction. Meriel turned to Halen. No one crosses that seal for council cloth. No one risks her hands for rank. If exposed servants come, wash skin with rainwater and plain moon soap outside the gate. Record every name. Halen nodded, tears standing bright but unshed. Vesk's voice remained calm. Operating any wash service outside a closed hall may violate the restriction. Meriel looked at Severan. Then decide whether your order protects health or punishes workers. Every eye moved to him. Severan took the closure notice from the board. For one breath, Meriel thought he might tear it down. He did not. Good. Too easy. Instead, he crossed out one line with the edge of his seal knife and wrote beneath it in his own hand. Iron Rain restricted pending supply contamination inquiry, not established as source. The courtyard seemed to exhale. Meriel did not. It was a correction, not restoration. Severan turned to the council officer. Public notice changes now. Worker triage outside the gate is authorized under healer custody. Council garments wait. Vesk watched the revised notice with unreadable eyes. Then a young stable servant stumbled through the arch, clutching both forearms. Red burns climbed from wrist to elbow beneath the cuffs of a royal council livery. Behind him came two more servants. Then a soldier. Then a kitchen girl carrying a folded officer cloak in tongs. The Moonwash Basin stayed still. No sample had been placed before it. The kitchen girl's voice shook. These came from the council wardrobe. Majesty. Meriel looked at the line of burned hands forming outside her sealed hall, then at Severan. Now, she said, we find out how far your safe rinse never reached. The first person Meriel treated was not a soldier. It was the stable servant. He could not have been more than 19, broad-shouldered but shaking, with red burns climbing under the cuffs of a royal council livery he had no right to own and every duty to wear. He stood outside Iron Rain's sealed gate, as if the wax itself might refuse him mercy. Meriel pointed to the rain barrel. Halen, plain moon soap. No treated rinse. Cut the cuffs open. Do not pull cloth over broken skin. The council officer stiffened. That livery is royal property. Meriel did not look at him. Then the crown can be grateful we are not letting it take his skin with it. Severan Holtwood's face changed, not with shock, with recognition. He turned to the officer. Any man who speaks of property before pain leaves this court. The officer stepped back. Vesk Tollan watched the servant's sleeves being cut away. Majesty, if exposed garments come from council stores, this inquiry now touches more than quartermaster procurement. It touches wardrobe handling, rank distribution, and officer-issue records. Then we touch them, Severan said. A murmur moved through the royal officers. Meriel washed the servant's wrists herself. Slow, practical, no ceremony. The washgirls moved around her with the quiet coordination of women who had cleaned worse things than pride from cloth. She did not enter Iron Rain. She did not break the seal. She worked outside the gate, under healer custody, because that was all the law now allowed her, and because she would not give Severan the comfort of pretending he had already restored what he broke. The young servant hissed through his teeth. Hold still, Meriel said gently. Pain makes the hands stupid. He gave a breathless laugh that almost became a sob. Severan watched her bandage him with plain linen. Once he had watched those hands wring battle rain from his cloak. Now he saw the cuts across her knuckles and understood, too late, that quiet work had never meant soft work. He turned to the recorder. Open the council wardrobe issue ledger. Vesk lifted his chin. Majesty, Council issue records contain rank assignments. Skin burns have outranked them. The ledger was brought beneath military seal. Its pages smelled of cedar, clean oil, and rooms that had never known laundry steam. Halen identified the council livery's intake tag. The healer sealed a cuff fiber. A recorder copied the wardrobe issue mark before anything touched the basin. Meriel stood back. Severan noticed. "You may witness. I know what I may do," she said. "I am deciding what I will lend my name to." His jaw tightened. "Good. Let him feel the difference." A clean control strip entered the Moonwash Basin first. The water remained silver. Then a thread from the servant's cuff entered a marked ring. Black oil curled into the water. Same pattern. Same moon soap rejection. Same sour mineral shadow. The healer spoke carefully. "Preliminary match to the earlier samples." Vesk did not deny it. "That suggests shared treatment exposure. Not yet a source." "No," Meriel said. "But it suggests the danger kept walking after you closed my door." Severan turned to the council ledger. "Where did this livery receive final treatment?" The recorder followed the column. "Council wardrobe store. Supply source?" The recorder hesitated. "Read it," Severan said. "Moon silver fever rinse allocated." The alchemist frowned. "This cuff is not behaving like moon silver rinse." Vesk looked toward the records. "Allocation does not prove application. Wardrobe stores may have substituted during shortage." Meriel's hands paused over the next servant's bandage. "There was no shortage," she said. Every face turned. She looked at Severan, not Vesk. "Ask how much safe rinse was held back." Severan's eyes sharpened. "Explain." "No," she said. "Ask the ledger. You believed paper when it closed my hall. Make paperwork as hard when it points upward." The words struck him in front of everyone. He accepted them. "Open the reserve allocation book," he ordered. Vesk's expression stayed calm, but his fingers settled over the edge of his own ledger. Severan saw it. Hands away. A small thing. A royal thing. A public thing. Vesk removed his hand. The reserve allocation book was older, bound in black leather with silver corners. It listed military supplies by destination, field companies, barracks infirmary, council wardrobe, officer reserve, laundry treatment, quarantine, stock. The recorder read the first column. Moon silver fever rinse, full rate purchased. Second column, officer reserve fulfilled. Third, council wardrobe fulfilled. Fourth, Iron Rain military treatment allocation. He stopped. Severan's voice went low. "Finish. Substitute authorized." Rain ticked against the courtyard stones. No one moved. Vesk spoke first. "Officer and council stores require presentation-grade preservation. Rank garments circulate through diplomatic spaces and must resist mildew during storage." Meriel laughed once, soft and tired. "There it is." Severan looked at her. "What?" The safe rinse was not gone. It was dressed for rank. The wash girls behind her went still. The bandaged soldiers stared at the council cloaks with a new kind of hatred. Severan looked down at the book. His face hardened until even his officers stepped back. "Record this," he said. Safe moon silver rinse was fulfilled to officer reserve and council wardrobe, while Iron Rain's military treatment line received substitute preservative. Vesk said, "That is allocation policy, not proof of criminal fraud." "No," Severan answered. "It is proof that I closed a women's hall before asking why the safest supply avoided the wounded." Meriel closed the bandage around the servant's wrist. "Do not say it to sound wounded," she said. He looked at her. She lifted her raw hands. "Say it where your council can hear it." Severan turned toward the barrack arch. "Summon the royal council to Iron Rain," he ordered. No cloaks changed. No uniforms replaced. Any exposed servant or soldier receives care first. Any record moved before witness custody will be treated as obstruction. Vesk's voice remained even. "Majesty, This will humiliate the council. Severan looked at the sealed gate he had made. Good. They can learn what public blame feels like when it arrives before comfort. Meriel did not forgive him. But this time, when he stood beside the damage, he did not ask her to make it smaller. The council bell began to ring from the upper hall, and beneath the evidence board, the Moonwash Basin waited in silver silence. The royal council came to Iron Rain in clean boots. That was the first insult. Their cloaks were dark wool, their collars silver-fastened, their hands gloved against the rain. Behind them came servants with red wrists, stable boys holding folded garments in tongs, and 2 soldiers trying not to scratch beneath their bandages. Meriel watched the order of arrival and understood the kingdom perfectly. Rank entered first. Payne followed, carrying the cloth. The council's senior minister looked at Severan Holtwood, not Meriel. Majesty, this inquiry has already unsettled military confidence. If our garments are involved, they must be tested privately. Meriel laughed once under her breath. The minister turned to her as if sound from a closed laundry were a breach of rank. Widow Doss? She stepped forward, raw hands bare. You want privacy after my workers were named unclean in public. Vesk Tollan stood beside the evidence board, still composed. The minister is not wrong to consider public order. Council exposure may create panic beyond Iron Rain. Panic did not trouble you when the panic was useful against my hall, Meriel said. Severan's gaze moved to her. There was pain in it. She did not tend it. The Moonwash Basin waited silver and quiet beneath the open roof. No cloth touched its rings. No magic came to rescue a room full of people from choosing what they would protect first. Meriel turned to the healer. How many exposed hands? Servants, 8. Soldiers, 6. Stable workers, 3. Council members, none with visible burns. The senior minister stiffened. Our garments may carry residue. Then remove them from skin, Meriel said. Your discomfort can wait. Broken skin cannot. That is not your decision. She looked toward the sealed gate of Iron Rain. No, not yet. Then she walked to the closure wax Severan had pressed with his own hand and placed her palm beside it, not on it. Alpha King, she said without looking at him, your restriction says Iron Rain may not process cloth as ordinary service. It does not forbid emergency skin decontamination under healer custody. Severan answered carefully. It does not. And it does not forbid a certified master washer from identifying clean vats, untreated linen, and safe rinse sequence for exposed bodies. No, the minister snapped. Majesty, she is suspended. Meriel turned then. I am suspended from laundering your pride, not from knowing water. The wash girls behind her drew in breath. Halen stepped beside Meriel, burned hands, bandaged but steady. Mistress Doss, the North Vat has not touched casks 7 through 12. Moon soap, stored before the suspect shipment. Blind linen, widow shelf, untreated. Meriel nodded. Then we open the north line for skin only. No council cloth, no officer cloaks, no garment salvage until every exposed servant, worker, and soldier is treated and recorded. Vesk's eyes sharpened. If you open a vat under restriction, you assume responsibility for any further harm. Meriel met him calmly. I have been made responsible for harm I did not create. I am not afraid to be responsible for care I can control. Severan reached for the closure chain. Meriel stopped him with a look. No. His hand froze. You do not open it for me, she said. You revise the order. Halen opens the line as worker witness. The healer supervises. The recorder writes every step. I will not let this become a royal favor returned to a woman you wronged. The words landed before everyone. Severan lowered his hand. Then he took the public notice and wrote beneath the restriction, emergency skin wash, authorized under healer and worker custody. Meriel read it. Only then did she nod to Halen. The senior wash worker broke the side latch, not the royal closure seal. The north line opened with a soft iron groan. Steam moved out, clean and plain, smelling of rainwater and old soap. The first servant stepped in trembling. Meriel guided him to the bench. Wrists first. Slow water. Do not scrub. Poison likes broken doors. The washgirls moved like a body with many hands. One poured. One cut cloth. One recorded names. Halen checked every linen strip before it touched skin. Severan stood outside the line. So did the council. That mattered. For once, the people who had carried danger on their bodies entered before those who had carried authority on their collars. A soldier caught Meriel's sleeve. "Mistress Doss, did the rinse take away our fever protection?" She looked at him and answered honestly. "We do not know yet. That is why the healers watch you twice, once for the burn, once for fever." He nodded. No false comfort. He trusted that more. Vesk spoke from the evidence board. "This does not restore Iron Rain's authority." Meriel did not turn. "No. It restores its purpose." The Moonwash Basin gave no sound, but when the last exposed servant placed his burned cuffs into the evidence tray, the silver water beneath the basin brightened enough to show every face leaning over it. The healer looked at the council garments waiting under seal. Next, Meriel dried her hands slowly. "No. Next, we test the records before we test the cloaks." The minister recoiled. "Records do not burn skin. They decide whose skin is allowed to burn." Severan looked at the reserve allocation book. "What record?" Meriel pointed to the council wardrobe column. Safe rinse was fulfilled there. If council garments burned servants anyway, either the safe rinse was never applied, or poisoned cloth entered after allocation. Ask which shipments were moved from officer reserve to council wardrobe after Iron Rain was blamed. Vesk's composure thinned by the smallest measure. Severan saw it. "Bring the transfer slips," he ordered. The recorder opened the council wardrobe packet with witnessed hands. 3 slips were ordinary. The 4th bore a red quartermaster routing mark. The recorder read it once, then again. Officer reserve garments transferred to council wardrobe after Iron Rain closure notice. Mia looked at Visk, not triumphant, precisi. The Moonwash Basin remained silver until the slip was placed beside the contaminated cuffs. Then, old moon ink rose across the paper. Officer reserve cloth moved after Iron Rain was named source. The transfer slip did not shout. It only sat beside the burned cuffs and let old moon ink finish what polite records had avoided. Officer reserve cloth moved after Iron Rain was named source. The council minister took one step back from the evidence table, as if distance could make the words less connected to his sleeve. Vesk Tollen read the line without flinching. A transfer after public health notice may have been precautionary. Council garments could have been removed from ordinary circulation to prevent confusion. Meriel looked at him. "Moved after my hall was named source." "Yes," Vesk said. "After risk was identified." "No," she said. "After blame was convenient." Severan Holtwood stood beside the Moonwash Basin, not touching the evidence, not commanding the room to feel less than it did. His gaze moved from the transfer slip to the reserve allocation book, then to the closed gate of Iron Rain. "Test the transferred cloth," he said. The healer sealed a thread from the council cloak. The recorder copied the transfer number. Halen identified the cloth as officer reserve weave, not Iron Rain linen. A clean control strip entered first. The basin remained silver. Then the council cloak thread crossed the test ring. Black oil curled into the water. The same pattern, the same moonso projection, the same mineral shadow. The alchemist's face tightened. "Preliminary match to ash lime residue." Vesk spoke before anyone else could. Again, not proof of intent. "Officer reserve may have been treated under emergency preservation." Severan turned to the recorder. "Open all reserve transfer slips from the day Iron Rain was closed." Vesk's eyes narrowed. "Majesty, that extends beyond the original contamination inquiry." "No," Meriel said. "It follows the cloth." Severan looked at her. "Then we follow the cloth," he said. "One by one, The slips were opened under witness. Officer reserved to council wardrobe. Officer reserved to senior barracks. Officer reserved to command tents. Officer reserved to ceremonial cloak storage. Each transfer dated after the first public notice, naming Iron Rain as the likely contamination source. Each one routed through quartermaster emergency authority. Each one carrying Vesk Tollan's office mark. The Moonwash Basin did not speak. It did not need to. It separated. Strip by strip, fiber by fiber, it drew black residue from the transferred cloth and left the silver water lined with dark rings. Beside each ring, old moon ink reconstructed the hidden supply marks, batch numbers, substitute approvals, reserve routes, billing codes. The court watched the invisible become administrative. That was worse than magic. It meant the truth had been written down all along. The recorder's voice shook when he reached the payment ledger. Crown charged safe rinse rate for every transferred batch. The alchemist checked the residue chart. Residue behavior remains consistent with ash lime preservative. The healer added, "No substitute warning attached to council transfers." Helen's burned hands closed into fists. Meriel did not look at them. If she did, she might forget how to stay composed. Vesk finally stepped forward. "I authorized emergency preservation to protect military cloth during supply pressure. I did not authorize harm to workers or soldiers." Meriel faced him. "You authorized a cheaper preservative, billed the crown for the safer rinse, failed to warn the laundry, and let my women bleed while your office moved treated cloth upward after Iron Rain was blamed. That is interpretation." "No," Severan said. "That is sequence." The word cut the room clean. He turned to the council, soldiers, servants, and wash workers. "Record this publicly. Iron Rain Laundry Court was not established as the source of contamination. The dangerous treatment entered the supply chain before Iron Rain's final wash. Quartermaster records show ash lime substitution, safe rinse billing, missing warnings, and post-notice transfers that spread exposed cloth after Meriel Doss's haul was blamed." Vesk's face hardened. "Majesty, you risk undermining the entire military supply office. I should have risked that before I sealed her gate." Silence struck deeper than thunder. Severan removed the closure seal from Iron Rain's gate himself. He did not tear it with drama. He cut it carefully and placed the broken wax on the evidence board beside his first order. "I closed this hall too broadly," he said. "I froze wages, ration rights, roof fire, widow protections, and Meriel Doss's authority before examining the supply chain. That failure was mine." Meriel felt the words move through her. They did not heal. They entered a wound that had been denied air. Vesk looked at the officers. "The Alpha King is sacrificing procedure to appease a public mood." Severan turned on him. "No. I am restoring procedure where your office used it as cover. Quartermaster Vesk Tollan, you are removed from supply authority, pending tribunal for substitution, concealment, unsafe distribution, false billing, and obstruction of warning records." The guards moved. Vesk did not resist. Men like him rarely did when the room finally understood paperwork. The council minister opened his mouth. Meriel spoke first. "No council cloth enters Iron Rain tonight." All eyes turned. She stepped to the north line, where exposed servants and soldiers still waited with bandaged wrists. "We treat skin first, then worker hands, then soldier cloth. Council garments wait until every servant who carried them is named, washed, recorded, and paid hazard wage." The minister bristled. "That is not yours to order." Severan looked at him. "It is now." Meriel turned sharply. "No." Severan stopped. She lifted the broken closure wax from the evidence board and set it beside Helen's bandages. "I will not take my authority back because the Crown is embarrassed," she said. "Iron Rain reopens under worker-held wash law. Certified washwomen, healers, and military witnesses decide what enters each line. No quartermaster cask touches our vats without our mark. No royal panic closes our bread without wages already secured. Halen stepped beside her. Then another wash girl. Then the old healer. Severan bowed his head before them all. "Record it," he said. "Laundry labor is military labor under pack law. Iron Rain workers receive hazard pay, medical care, and witness standing in all cloth treatment inquiries." Meriel's throat tightened, not from forgiveness, from the sound of women's work finally being named where men could not pretend not to hear. When the last exposed servant was treated, and the first clean soldier bundle entered the north line, dawn silvered the rain troughs. Severan approached only as far as the wet stone allowed. "If there is a place for me after this," he said, "I will stand where your law permits me." Meriel looked at him, tired and unsoftened. "Start outside the wash line," she said, "and learn the names of every woman whose hands kept your soldiers alive." "I will, and if I never ask you closer?" His answer was quiet. "Then I will still keep the doors open." Meriel believed he meant it. She did not yet know whether meaning it would be enough. That choice, at last, was hers. The Moonwash Basin cleared to silver, and Iron Rain Laundry Court opened first for the hands that had always done the work.